Welcome to Sterling on Sunday. I am James Parker along with Rebecca Pratt. Now, you may remember me, or at least this voice, as your host of Florida Stories for the last 4 years. Actually, July 27th will mark 4 years that I've been hosting Florida Stories for you on Sterling on Sundays. Rebecca Pratt, however, is a new member of the team. Rebecca, first off, introduce yourself. Say hello to the crew out there for Sunday night.
Hello, crew out there on Sunday nights. I'm Rebecca, and if you're wondering why my voice is so deep, I am a transgender woman, and I look better than I sound. But James and I worked in radio together for a bunch of years. And that's what I've done most of my adult life, was host radio shows. So it's cool being here tonight in Sterling on Sundays, and want to have some fun.
Yeah, and we're not going to harp on this too much, but I do think we are making radio history right now because it's just a coincidence that it's Pride Month, but I believe we have the first transgender talk show host on a nationally syndicated radio show. I think you're hearing history right this second. Now, Rebecca, you probably know a little bit more about this whole community than me. Are we making history right now? Is this a radio first, a broadcast first?
I can't think of any other transgender person who has been on national radio. I didn't know I was going to be on national radio until a few days ago. So I think that this is a first. But don't put all the pressure for me to represent every transgender person. Don't put that pressure on me, because I'm just myself and I can only speak for myself. And I don't agree with everything that everybody in that particular community has to say, although I agree with a lot of it.
Of course. And you know what? We'll dig a little bit deeper down that rabbit hole later on in the show. I just wanted to start with something that has been just weighing heavily on me, and in a good way. So my wife has found Chick-fil-A sauce at the grocery store, and Chick-fil-A sauce at the grocery store comes in this little white squeeze bottle with the red top. It has the Chick-fil-A logo on it, and she brought it home. I was like, Chick-fil-A has a sauce? And they do. And you've tasted it before. You just didn't know this entire time. Chick-fil-A had its own sauce that they were putting on their chicken sandwiches and some of their other fare out there. But it kind of looks like dirty mayo, sort of like a Thousand Island with like some dots in it. And it is absolutely fantastic. And I am just amazed that here I am. I'm in my 40s. I haven't had a new sauce in decades. You know, every once in a while you run across some new type of restaurant, like an Ethiopian restaurant or like a Lebanese or Bangladeshi restaurant, and get some new flavors. But it has been a long time since I've been introduced to a new sauce. And when your sauce world expands, it's so good having something new for the first time in a long time in the culinary world. Are you familiar with Chick-fil-A sauce, Rebecca?
Well, I love Chick-fil-A, and that's the first thing I said, and that's going to anger many people in my community because they're not fans of Chick-fil-A. But I love Chick-fil-A.
Wait, you know what? We should just start counting the heretical things that you say. Uh-oh, Rebecca said that she likes Chick-fil-A. No, not like Chick-fil-A. Anyway, go ahead.
I didn't know they had their own sauce, though. I didn't. And you told me your wife bought it off the supermarket shelf. That would be like me going into the supermarket here and buying Popeye's Bayou buffalo sauce. Like if they put that in a jar.
All right, now that's your dream sauce to be found over the counter, Popeye's Bayou buffalo sauce.
That's very, very good.
Okay, now I don't know who started it, but it's been going on for a few years, the idea of some of these fast food chains having some sort of merchandise in a grocery store. I remember Taco Bell used to have taco shells, and then for a while there, I think they might still serve their Locos tacos, the ones that are made with like Dorito dust on them. the Loco Taco, just the
Yeah,
shell.
they're crazy tacos.
Oh, yeah, they're not regular tacos. They're absolutely Loco. Look, and it's pretty good. But sauce, I don't know if you noticed this, but sauce is the most important part of any meal as far as the flavor goes. And I had a roommate in college who dropped out to go to chef school. And the first class, the first semester that they make every professional chef take is sauces. Because sauces are everything. Sauces are what make a dish a dish. The difference between Alfredo and just regular old fettuccine with primavera is what? It's the sauce. The thing that makes a Reuben is the sauce. The thing that makes a Caesar salad is the sauce. And so
Well, you could say that about every Italian dish, every type of Italian food. It's going to be good if the sauce is good.
yeah, because it's all the same thing. It's noodles, maybe a couple meatballs thrown in there, and then it just depends on the sauce. Primavera, marinara, Alfredo. What else you got? Because you do the Italian thing really good.
Bolognese. That's the meat sauce.
The rest of it, they just gave different words to noodles. Like, here, we got spaghetti. And then, okay, what's this? Flat spaghetti? No, that's fettuccine. Well, it looks like flat spaghetti. Nope, totally different. All right, what is this? Is this skinny spaghetti? Nope, that's angel hair. It's skinny spaghetti. Nope, it's a whole new thing. So I was thinking, I was trying to think about when the first sauces came out. And I remember Whataburger ketchup came in stores just a few years ago, and it is better than just your regular old pedestrian ketchup. It's better than Hunt's and Heinz, and I don't know what it is. I'm no ketchup expert, but my oldest kid is a ketchup expert. He loves ketchup. And
You're telling me Whataburger ketchup is better than Heinz ketchup?
It is. It is. I am telling you that. And they also have a spicy ketchup that my wife likes better than I like Heinz and Hunt's ketchup. I mean, I love them, but it's just a little bit different. And maybe it's not better, but the fact that it's different and you haven't had access to this your whole life, you want it because, hey, let me have that new thing that's just as good as the previous stuff. It's kind of hard to top the ketchup world because it's pretty limited there. But Whataburger did that, and then they did their spicy ketchup, which is still I like it. But they've branched out because they have like a jalapeno ranch, and they have honey mustard that I bought. So Whataburger got out there fast, but I think most of the people listening, because we're on like 100 stations right now, aren't even exposed to Whataburger. But you know what I would like to see bottled up at the grocery store is Arby's sauce, because I don't know what Arby's sauce is. It is like a ketchup barbecue hybrid of some sort. And then not just Arby's sauce, but Arby's also has that horsey sauce, which is like horseradish sauce. But I see other people do horseradish, and I prefer what Arby's has. That's kind of what I would like to see next as one of these sauces that goes from the restaurant world to my grocery store.
This is the real saucy topic that we're talking about here.
Did you just really? I don't know. Oh, man, that was bad. I would also like to see Cane's sauce. I know Cane's probably isn't as nationwide as some of these other chains. And then there's one. Have you ever heard of Captain D's, Rebecca?
No.
Okay, so Captain D's it's based out of Nashville. It's a seafood chain, kind of like Long John Silver's, but it has 500 locations. It's really big down here in the South. But, you're from the Northeast, and then in the New Orleans area where you live now, they don't have a Captain D's. But they have a tartar sauce that I have not found a match for in my adult life. We used to go to Captain D's all the time when I was a kid, and then I lived in places where Captain D's didn't exist. So I understand why you would have that culinary hole in your experience. But that's another one I would like to see on the shelf. Precisely for a similar reason why I would like to see, I like seeing Whataburger ketchup on the shelf, because most of the people that are exposed to that ketchup aren't even exposed to the restaurant.
They had a Whataburger on Magazine Street here in New Orleans, but it's been gone for a while. So I don't know where. I don't even know if they sell the Whataburger ketchup here in New Orleans. They might.
Yeah, and if you. A couple things. If you want to contact the show, it's 888-688-WALT, 888-688-9258, or you can come find us, James Parker or Rebecca Pratt. We're on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and a bunch of other stuff. So come on, wherever you leave a comment, I'll pop it up on the screen and we can continue this conversation. If you have something you would like to see in the sauce world, go from a restaurant to the grocery store. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. This is Sterling on Sunday. For Sterling on Sundays, I'm James Parker along with Rebecca Pratt. We're filling in for Sterling on Sundays, and we love this shift. I've never got to do this shift on a regular basis. I've only got to do it on a fill-in basis. And let me tell you the magic, because, Rebecca, have you ever done a regular Sunday night show?
No. Maybe when I first started in radio a long time ago, but I haven't done a Sunday night show. I can't even remember when.
So here's the feeling you get, because we're together along with the guy listening, and what we're all trying to do is squeeze that last little bit out of the weekend. This is the last weekend shift before everyone has that dreaded alarm clock on Monday morning. So this is sort of like in the talk radio world, in the entertainment world. It's like when you get to the end of the toothpaste tube and you think it's empty, but you can squeeze it out like 5, 6, 7 more times, and then you do that thing where you roll it up and then you cram the end of it as hard as you can in a fist like a vice, and you get that last little toothpaste squeeze out. It's not like toothpaste is expensive. We're all just lazy. That's what this shift is. This is when you're squeezing that last couple of squirts out of the toothpaste tube after you've already rolled it up. That's what this feels like. You understand what I'm saying there, Rebecca?
Or getting the last couple of drops out of the sauce bottle.
Welcome.
If you're just joining us, we talked about sauces and how Chick-fil-A has a sauce that they sell in supermarkets, and it's really good.
All right, let's do the monologues. Tell some jokes. Welcome to the monologue. I'm your host, James Parker. Oh, shucks. Thank you. All right, according to Globe magazine, Vladimir Putin secretly underwent cancer surgery, and I'm afraid there's some bad news. The operation was a success.
It's safe to say this world would be a better place if he were dead.
Well, he could always be replaced by someone worse. We were happy when Lenin died, and that just gave us Stalin. Massachusetts is now issuing driver's license to illegal immigrants, but it doesn't stop there. Now they're demanding a phony proof of insurance. I think we got a lot of illegal immigrants in the crowd today. Authorities have discovered another tunnel linking Tijuana and San Diego. That means more than 170 drug tunnels have been found since 1990. In fact, economists think the smugglers are spending more on infrastructure than we do.
I've spent time in San Diego, and we went down to Tijuana a couple of times. And one of the times, we took an underground tunnel. It was pretty cool. They got electricity, air conditioning. It's really nice.
They got, in-flight snacks or whatever. In Yorktown, Virginia, a 32-year-old female history teacher was arrested for indecent liberties with an underage male student. The boys reacted saying, "Give me indecent liberties or give me death." Soviet cosmonaut Valery Ryumin has passed away at the age of 82. Former colleagues remember him as very much down to earth. That's a bad one. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I have to feel like a dad joke. At least one good dad joke in every time. A team of chefs made a record 629-pound hamburger. Before it got cold, though, it was eaten by Rebecca's mom. So.
Must have been a while ago because my mom is dead.
Why you ruined my mom jokes with that? Hey, June is Celibacy Awareness Month. No offense, Rebecca. But June is Celibacy Awareness Month. This year's theme is Don't Give It To Me, Baby. That was my voice of me doing Dave Chappelle doing a white person. It's hilarious. It was on this day in 1920. Little history joke for you, Rebecca. The U.S. Postal Service banned sending children by mail. Incidentally, the last kid to be mailed is now 102 years old, and he was just delivered on Friday. Hey, that's not a joke. They really did used to mail kids, though. Have you ever seen that? There's pictures of
people. That's pretty cool. Why did they stop?
Yeah, I don't understand. Are they going in a low oxygen environment or something? Britney Spears and Sam Asghari got married this week. The bride had tears in her eyes when she lip-synced I Do. Wait. The judges, is that a good one? Judges are conferring, and they're nodding. That was a good one. Okay. Whew. A little hesitation on that one. According to National Enquirer, Kelly Clarkson is spending $80,000 a month to maintain her Montana ranch. Coincidentally, that's how much she spends on ranch dressing. So, it's a bad joke. According to the National Enquirer, Heather Locklear has ruined her face with plastic surgery. To give you an idea of how bad it is, she's being pestered for selfies by people who think she's Nicole Kidman. Who's the worst plastic surgery face that got wrecked? Is it Nicole Kidman, Madonna? Would you say Renee Zellweger? Who's in that category?
Renee Zellweger doesn't even look like she used to look like. She looks like a different human being. From what I've heard, I haven't seen much, only a little bit, because she doesn't want to be seen. But Melanie Griffith, she, and it's sad, Hollywood.
Yes.
I mean, look at the new Top Gun movie. They put Tom Cruise in. He almost looks the same as he's looked 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. But they didn't put Kelly McGillis in.
No.
She looks nothing like she looked 35 years ago. And it's a double standard in Hollywood. You can be an old man and still get the major roles. But when you're a woman, once you hit mid-30s, 40 years old, that's pretty much it. And then you go and you try to get the plastic surgery, and it's so obvious when they get plastic surgery.
Well, maybe it's Scientology with all the thetans or drinking baby's blood or whatever they've been doing over there. I don't know. There might be something to that. We might have to look into that after the show. Friday was National Cow Day, so you can go ahead and send out a belated thank you from me to Rebecca's mom.
You know my mom's dead, don't you?
It's still funny. Was it too soon? It's been a while. How long has she been dead?
A long time, but she was
okay
a glamour
then.
girl. There was nothing bad about
then you
her.
you have no reason to be offended. Sunday is also World Day Against Child Labor, or as China calls it, June 12th. Happy birthday to Frank Beard of ZZ Top. I don't want to say he's getting old, but he and the band have a new song called Cheap Reading Glasses. I feel like one of them. And finally, we have a happy belated birthday this week. Sportscaster Marv Albert turned 81. If you want to send him a gift, I hear he's registered at Victoria's Secret. So,
Yes! Yes! And it counts!
Yes. Hey, and in that cute, we ended with a tranny joke for you because he had that, trans situation that went on back in the day. All right, you're listening to Sterling on Sundays. I'm James Parker along with Rebecca Pratt. Don't go anywhere. On Sunday, I'm James Parker along with Rebecca Pratt, filling in for the great Walter Sterling. It's an honor to fill in on a show that not only has such a legendary regular host, but we are heard on some of not just a bunch of stations, some of the most legendary, biggest signals that the greatest country on earth has to offer. And we're not on in like Bunny Chip, Nebraska. We're on like WPHT in Philadelphia. We're on KMOX in St. Louis. I think we're still on WLS in Chicago. I mean, these are big, booming, legendary signals with millions of people in the umbrella of their broadcast field. And we're making history today because the girl sitting next to me is sitting next to me on the radio for the first time as a girl. Rebecca, I think we're making history. I did a little Google search. I think this is it. I think Caitlyn Jenner may have joined someone on a sports broadcast for a while, but that's not the same animal. I think we're making history right here.
So I'm the first transgender woman to co-host a nationally syndicated radio show. That's cool.
Yeah,
like I said, I don't want the pressure from the whole transgender community on my shoulders to represent them, because like I said when we started, I don't agree with everything that the community has to say. I agree with a lot of it, but all right, for instance, like that transgender woman who was swimming in college for the University of Pennsylvania,
Leah Thomas.
I didn't think that was right. You look at that one picture after she beat all of those born girls or cis girls when you saw the picture of her standing next to those cis girls who she swam against, she looked 2 to 3 times bigger than every one of those girls who she beat. And that did not make the transgender community, my community, look good. It made us look like a bunch of bullies. It made us look like we're picking on girls and beating girls.
So that's the same position Caitlyn Jenner took. Caitlyn Jenner doesn't think it's right to have trans girls competing with girls. She acknowledges that biology plays a big role in the athleticism between the genders, and that's not a fair advantage. How many of the trans community do you think share you and Caitlyn's view versus the view that was widely accepted by the NCAA?
Not many. Not many. The majority of the people in the transgender community, they're all for Leah Thomas, and they think that that's great. And I have a problem, especially with younger people in sports, trans women, trans girls, going against cis girls or born girls.
Where should they compete? Where does Leah Thomas get to swim, though? Does Leah Thomas have to swim with the dudes?
Well, that's how she was born. And I know she was on hormone replacement therapy for a year, but doing hormone replacement therapy for a year, it's not that long. I know people who've done it for 10, 15 years, and they're still changing.
Have you done it?
Not yet. I'm going to start my transition fairly soon. Right now, I'm just living my life as a woman, and they want you to do that for a while before you medically and legally become one.
So what is it? What's the cutoff? How do you live your life as a woman? Do you have to be presenting as a female half of your waking hours, all of your waking hours, 90%?
Well, so you're supposed to do all of your waking hours.
Do you do that? Is that tough?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it. Yeah, and this isn't the first time in my life that I've tried to do this. There were a couple of other occasions. I started, but then stopped. The cool thing about now is I think times are changing, and I think the term transgender, most people know what that is, and it's being accepted more than it ever has in the past. So
why now? You could have done it. I think that door opened for you when Caitlyn Jenner came out, and you saw the backlash was pretty minimal. In fact, she was launched into her own reality show, I Am Caitlyn. So I think, in my opinion, and probably shared by some of the people listening, that you could have done this 10 years ago. Why'd you wait until now?
Well, my career on the radio was still going, and I didn't want to mix my personal life, what I'm going through here with this, with my professional life. I didn't want to do that, but I could have done this 10 years ago. I wanted to do it 20 years ago, but times were a lot different then.
Oh, I agree with that. All right, so just to let you know, as you've come out publicly, and it was just recently, like, do you have an official coming out date? Because I know some of my gay friends have their little coming out anniversary. Do you have a coming out as trans date?
I haven't made any announcement. Me coming out was joining you on the radio and on streaming here. That was me coming out. I still haven't made any official announcement or anything like that. I just don't. I don't want to shine the light.
But it sounds weird because you're on like 100 radio stations saying I haven't come out. Well, it's the cat's out the bag now. There's I don't know, 100,000 people that are listening to this, so someone knows besides you and me.
Well, no, I've come out with you and doing streaming and radio. I just haven't made a personal announcement. I don't want to shine the light on myself that much. I don't want to put it in people's faces. I just kind of want to live my life.
All right. So look, what the guy listening doesn't understand is that myself, James, and Rebecca had already been working together as partners on a radio show in New Orleans before I knew that she really wanted to be Rebecca. And I found out just in the middle of the process. And it's interesting because most people don't get a chance to, a lot of people know of or know a trans person, but to be friends and to work next to someone and have like adjacent cubicles for 6 years with a trans person, there's a lot of sympathy/empathy that would be gained if people did know. Because from my point of view, your compulsion, your desire to live as a woman has been not a very fun experience for you. It's been every bit as much of a burden as it has been enjoyable. And, when I see you, I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean this in a good way. Life's tough enough. I actually thankful that I don't have this compulsion. This isn't fun for you.
Well, I think most people, if they see or hear about someone who's transgender, once you throw all the jokes out the window, think about it for a second. It's not an easy way to live life, and it's not an easy life. And I've been dealing with this since I was a child. But my life, I basically lived two lives. I lived my professional life, and then I lived my personal life. And my personal life has been cool. I mean, the women that I dated, and I love women. I'm so attracted to women that I want to be one. The ones who I was in long-term relationships with, they knew about this, and I did this with them. But as I've gotten older, being a part-time woman, I don't know. It's kind of like, the clock's ticking, time's running out. I want to commit myself to doing this. And so that this is cool. And I'm looking now for my first job as a woman. And it would be the first one of those that I had. So,
all right. So I want to go turn back the clock to when I found out, because there was a very important meeting that we were supposed to be at the radio station. And since I'm the more responsible one, no offense, but management knows, they were like, make sure John shows up. Well, it was John missing that meeting that had me going and knocking on the door and waking him up. And he said, hang on, give me a second. And he had just a little hint of eyeliner under his eye. And that made me think, wait a second. But we had to go to work. I let it all pass. I came home. We did a show. I came home. Wife said, what's wrong? She could just tell something was wrong on my face. I said, baby, I think my boss is a tranny. Why don't you ask? So I asked, you told, and it took off from there. We'll continue this story coming up. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt as we make history on Sterling on Sunday. Oh, my God, Vila Hula is ruining my life. You mean strippers can't keep a secret? Oh, my God. I have to go rewrite my entire plan for life now. Dude, I don't know if people appreciate the genius that is Vila Hula. First off, I don't even know what that means. I'm guessing that's not his real name because I've never known anyone named Vilo or Hul. But secondly, this dude can do anything. But Rebecca, I don't know if you're not a regular listener of the show, but Vilo Hul is doing Strippers on the Loose as a report right now. But a year ago, Vilo Hul was doing a fishing report. And Vilo Hul has done just different genres of reports. And it's amazing because I cannot guess what this dude's about to do next.
So strippers and fishing? Strippers fishing?
Yeah, those things are pretty far apart, right? But you also got to think, well, what can a dude do for a 2-minute update on fish, period, that would still be interesting? And Vilo Hul would make you feel gross because he would talk about, for those of you who are, wanting to breed your goldfish, this is goldfish breeding season. This is how you get them to mate more. And it's like, I do not need fish sex updates, or fish libido, I should say, updates. Fish fertility is not an issue that comes up in the Parker household. Have you ever had issues with the fertility levels of fish, Rebecca?
No, fish sex is something I don't think about. I just got a little bit confused, though, when he talks about strippers and he talks about fishing, and all I'm thinking about are a bunch of strippers in a boat with fishing rods.
You would think.
I got a little bit confused.
Such is the genius of Vilo Hul, is that you have to pay attention because you have no idea what this dude is going to report on next. All right, here on Sterling on Sundays, I'm James Parker. That's Rebecca Pratt, the other voice you hear. You may recognize mine because I've been hosting Florida Stories for Walter for almost 4 years. Next month will be 4 years. We haven't run one thus far today, though, have we, Sean? Or we still got all 3 in the can? There you go. So we got 3 editions of Florida Stories coming up. But there has been a major development with Florida Stories over the last couple of weeks or so. I have remixed them into podcast format, and these are evergreen podcasts, which means they are not time sensitive. You can go back and you can listen to episode 1 from 2018, and it will be just as funny and entertaining as it was the day it came out. And so I went back and I just gave myself this little side quest of remixing these, and I'm already up to episode 100. There is a 100 episode podcast of Florida Stories that you have heard on Walter Sterling's show over the last 4 years, now available wherever you're listening to podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon Music, all these places that you're already going for podcasts. Just look for Florida Stories. And you'll see in the description, it's hosted by James Parker. There's a logo with like yellow writing on it because there's a lot of Florida podcasts these days. But this is probably the best one. And I'm pretty excited because I have 100 episodes of evergreen content. So people 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there's a possibility, Rebecca, that historians 1,000 years from now are going to be going over this like they go over Roman tablets or the Rosetta Stone.
You just gotta. Your problem is you just gotta get people to go check it out now. That's what you need.
Right.
If historians are going to look at it 100 years from now. You need some people to actually go look at it now.
Yeah, because I don't care. Once I'm dead, if you use my MyPillow promo code or not, that's not going to do me any good. Please go check it out. But while I can still monetize it during my lifetime, that's a good point, but kind of disappointing. Good point. Props for that. All right, so go ahead.
Do you know why so many crazy stories come out of Florida? It's because the people that are there, and why is that? It's because they have nice weather, and the crazy people from all over the country, they end up going to Florida. They could have gone to California, Southern California, but the taxes are too high. There's no state tax in Florida. So the cost of living is a lot cheaper. The weather's nicer, and that's why the craziest of the crazy end up down in Florida. I know. I was there for a few years.
Well, I think the crazy people have a tendency to congregate in temperate weather. So you can see why Los Angeles has the big tent cities. It has the best weather in the country, Los Angeles, as much as the place has its own problems and faults and issues going on, and policy plays some issue with that. But really, the weather has got to be the big driver, because if you're not subjected to heating or air conditioning, the Los Angeles, San Francisco, Florida, and Texas, while they're a little hot, that doesn't kill you. Cold weather kills homeless people.
You're right, but for homeless, Southern California is the best. They don't have the humidity, and they're not paying taxes anyways.
All right, I'm James Parker. That's Rebecca Pratt. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday. All right, welcome. I'm James Parker, along with Rebecca Pratt, filling in for the great Walter Sterling on Sundays. Thank you very much for hanging out with us as we try and squeeze the last little bit out of the weekend. The weekend is not over until we say it's over. The weekend actually ends when you turn this show off, unless you're listening on like the podcast or like a delayed stream, something later. But if you're listening to this live, me and you are waiting to be kicked out of the bar. I'm a guy that doesn't leave before last call goes. I make last call kick me out, and that's what this show is. Rebecca.
So, Parker, if we're squeezing the last minutes out of the weekend, like you have said, we should be drinking right now too. But thank you to Walter Sterling for letting us fill in for him tonight.
Who says we're not drinking? Where we could be funneling tequila on the breaks. Don't ruin the surprise here. Okay,
I won't.
Okay, so you're a new voice of the show. I am recognized by the guy listening, if he's a regular listener, because I do Florida Stories. And one of the stories that we're going to go over on Florida Stories, because even though I'm hosting, we're going to still do the bit as a regular thing. But I wanted to run this one by you, Rebecca, because there's like 28 things wrong with Florida. Okay. I mean, any thoughts on the Florida stories? Because I think you've heard some of them before. As a radio professional, any advice or your thoughts on Florida stories?
Well, no, I guess I'm just kind of numb to it because I lived there for 5 years. So if you've lived in Florida for 5 years like I have, any Florida story you hear, it doesn't make you shake your head or it doesn't make you say, wow. It's like, oh, yeah, Florida.
Yeah, what did they do this week? Good, 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 good. That's kind of what I want to hear. But there's this one story, and this one's super weird. So I want to go into to deeper detail on this one because this comes out of it ends up in the Orlando area, but it started out as there's a guy who is a high-powered, high-paid, high-flying NBA executive. He's working in the executive suite at an NBA franchise in Florida. So that kind of narrows it down for you a little bit.
It's either the magic of Orlando or the heat of Miami.
Oh, wait. Hang on. Call me dumb. I said that wrong. NFL executive. I'm sorry. We have another NBA story coming up, and I was mixing up my leagues here. But
so it's either the Jaguars of Jacksonville, the Buccaneers of Tampa Bay, or the Dolphins of Miami.
There we go. Now, but it ends up in Orlando, so it stays in Florida. Isn't this great? So this guy, he's been busy with his career, and I don't know if that's the reason why he delayed marriage until he was in his 40s, or maybe he was just having a lot of fun with all the attention you get when you're making 6, maybe 7 figures. And he finally meets the woman of his dreams and settles down and gets married. Now, the bad part about that is they get married, they move in together, the new wife and her 2 daughters, and 3 months later, she dies of cancer. So now the stepdad is living with the 2 stepdaughters, and I guess they got along pretty good because when the older stepdaughter turned 20, she started dating her stepdad.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so that's a little weird. But that's all right. He was in love with her mom. It's easy to see how he could find some of the similar qualities in the daughter. And, of course, there's like a 20-year age gap. But, love, can span a gap like that. But it does go afoul of the generally accepted formula on what is too young to date. And for the guy listening, Rebecca's probably heard me say this 1,000 times. But the formula on what is too young to date is you take the guy's age, or it could be the girl's age, you take the older one's age, you divide it in half and add 7. And so that's a pretty good barometer of whether or not you've gone too young. Because once it gets under that level, it's icky. There's something wrong with it. So for this guy to be 40 years old dating a 20-year-old doesn't pass the test. You could be a 40-year-old dating a 27-year-old or getting married to a 27-year-old and be like, yeah, that's a pretty big spread, but it's reasonable. It's legit. But somehow that formula works so good because someone that's 25, 24, marrying a 40-year-old, something's up, right? Don't you kind of get that feeling that that's like the Icky Mendoza line?
Yeah, you have to know where to draw the line.
Okay, so let's add some Florida ickiness. They end up having a child. And okay, so a girl just in her early 20s just had a child with her stepdad, but they got married. And you know what? Maybe it's true love because then a couple years later they have another child. Okay, 2 children. So it wasn't an accident. So now it's starting to look like true love. However, you fast forward a few years and the cops have been called on to this couple's house for a variety of reasons. Of course, he says that she beats him and he says that, he says that she beats him, and she says that he beats her. And I don't know who's right. He said, she said. We're not ever going to get the full story because she comes home one night from McDonald's, and he is in a drunken rage already when she shows up. He's already in a bad mood. And her side of the story is that he attacked her. He punched her in the face and knocked her down. And then he grabbed her by the hair and threw her into the kitchen island. And while he was choking her, she reaches up into the drawer behind her, pulls out a knife, stabs him in self-defense, and then goes and runs into the bathroom and locks herself in to be safe from him.
I've heard about girls with daddy issues before, but this is really pushing it.
Yeah, this is literal daddy issues, and I think that counts as judges. Is that another dad joke? Yeah, it's a dad joke. Here's where it gets
stepdaddy issues.
Even better. Here's where it gets even weirder, Rebecca. She doesn't call 911 for 11 hours. Cops show up. When the cops walk in, the crime scene is gruesome. The now deceased husband / stepdad is laying face down in a gigantic pool of his own blood. However, there is also a soiled mop and a bucket with kind of pinkish mop water in it. And there's some very obvious attempts of someone who had tried, there's cleaning products out. Someone was trying to clean up the murder scene, and they quit about halfway through. I don't know if they got bored or whatever. So the cops go and find her, and they want to get the story. When did this happen? Oh, this happened last night at about 12:30. 12:30? You didn't call us for 11 hours? No. Well, why not? Well, I had locked myself in the bathroom, and I didn't know if he was still out there. I didn't know if he was dead. I had just stabbed him in self-defense. Sound plausible? Maybe she was scared and she wanted to stay in the bathroom until, she didn't hear anything for a while. Maybe she stayed in the bathroom and fell asleep. But
maybe she wanted to stay into the bathroom until he bled out.
Okay, so the cops go over there and they take a look at the body. There's not one stab wound. There's not two stab wounds. There's 15 stab wounds. Is there such thing as 15 stab wounds in self-defense? Maybe. It's getting less plausible, this story, that this was a self-defense action. But since he bled out, we don't know what his side of the story is. Here's one more.
Well, I'm trying to use the same rationale as the age difference between two people dating. Cut it in half and then add 7.
Right.
Does that work with stab wounds too? If there were more than 7 stab wounds or less than 7 stab wounds, maybe you could believe her. I'm not sure.
Yeah, right. The more stab wounds there are, the less likely, especially that 15th stab was from a defensive stance. But, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when they're physically inferior to the person that's attacking them. You just want to beat them till they stop if it is self-defense. So here's the last little detail that's going to sway the story for you. They went and got her cell phone records, and it turns out she did wait 11 hours, and in that 11-hour span, she may have been locked in the bathroom when she did this, but she was browsing for dudes on a dating app while her husband's bleeding out in the kitchen. Good news is she waited until he was dead before she found another date, so at least she didn't cheat on him. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday. Florida Stories, I'm that guy that you just heard in the promo, but in addition to doing Florida Stories as my usual duty that you hear on Sunday nights, I am now filling in again as host with a good friend of mine, Rebecca Pratt. And, it's one of these issues where in the professional world, you don't always get to choose who you're paired up with. And something that, Rebecca, you've probably noticed this, there's also an oddity in broadcasting where if you get paired up with someone, there tends to be, after some period of time, could be a year, 2 years, 5 years, that most of the people who do duos end up hating each other. They don't get along. And there's a lot of examples like that, like Mike Francesca and Mad Dog. Are one of the classic examples. Opie and Anthony, another classic example. Like in the music world, I didn't know this until a few years ago, but apparently Brooks and Dunn absolutely loathe each other and don't talk off the stage. And there's 1,000 examples like that. However, Rebecca and I have that rare spark to where I must admit we do great work together. I am better when I'm with her. I think she's better when she's with me. And have we ever even gotten in an argument about anything?
No, I mean, you've gotten mad at me in the past because, like you've already mentioned once during this broadcast, that you were the more the responsible one. But that's cool. But now, and if you're just joining us, the reason I don't sound like a Rebecca is because I am transgender, and I'm starting my transition. Um, but now that I'm living as a woman, I should leapfrog you in the responsibility, right? Because isn't it the woman who usually is more responsible than the man?
That's a good point. Women are, stereotypically at least, but I think there's probably some real world data to back it up, more responsible. But I don't think it's going to happen. So
I don't either.
yeah, so let's go through some of the. Well, we got to catch new people up because they haven't been listening to the whole show. Let's go through some of the basics. We knew each other for a few years before I discovered you were trans. Since then, the relationship hasn't really changed at all, other than I've learned a whole lot about what life is like as a trans person. And all it's done since then is it sort of made you a sympathetic figure. Now,
I don't want you feeling sorry for me.
Well, I feel sorry for you in the fact that your dating pool is so small, and that's not, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't choose to be like this, because you would undo it in a second if you could do it and still maintain the same level of happiness and comfort that you do when you are Rebecca. And
well, yeah, and I always dated women. I'm as I mentioned, I'm so attracted to women. I think I want to be one. But now that I'm living as a woman, I only seem to get attention from men in that category.
Okay, so
that's wild.
So your preference for women over men, it may be overrun by your preference for being a woman instead of a man, because now you're actually considering dating dudes in order for, because look, one of the things that makes you an object of sympathy, not that you're a victim or anything, but just it sucks that it looks like a lonely lifestyle.
It's not that lonely. I mean, I don't know how many people want to settle down with someone like me. Maybe the ones that do, maybe I'm just not into. I don't know. But there are people that want to hang out with me, keep me on the down low.
So you're someone else's fetish then?
Some people, I guess.
Well, absolutely. That look, it takes all kinds, and there's people who like anything. Or there's someone for whatever category you like, someone's going to fall into that category. But you're in the spot to where you prefer women, and so your unicorn is finding a beautiful woman that is into trans women. And I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying that's a lot smaller pool that you get to date out of than I did as a straight guy looking for a straight girl.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's not a lot of really good looking women out there running around looking for a trans woman.
So how does the dating thing happen? Do you have to go to special websites or special apps that I don't know about? Like where are you finding dates? Because you do have a dating life.
Yeah, and I'm. It's not like I'm out there hunting or looking, but whether I'm out in a bar or whether I'm online on Facebook or whatever, there are people, mostly dudes, who hit on me, who ask me out, and even though I'm not into that, it does kind of make me feel good that these dudes want to hang out with me. You know what I mean? At least somebody does.
So I've done some reading into the situation, and there seems to be multiple avenues where people end up in your situation. Now, one of them is someone who is a woman that just happens to be born in a man's body. Some of them are schizophrenic, where they have multiple personalities. One of them happens to be a girl, and when they are feeling like that girl, that is when they want to do it. So it's almost like a part-time, temporary on and off situation. And then some of them that are sort of the more schizophrenic route, eventually the opposite sex ends up taking over, and that's what causes the transition. And I'm not sure which one you are, but I think you're the solid. I don't think you're the schizo one, but I'm not sure about that. What does your research tell you? Do I just sound ignorant as all get out to you, or am I making any kind of sense?
Well, I can tell you I'm not schizophrenic.
Well,
I may have a few issues,
right,
obviously, that's not one of them.
well, you have the same personality for the most part when you're presenting as a man or a woman. You use the same voice, which is strong evidence to the not schizophrenic. But one of the big pieces of evidence that you have that does point towards schizophrenia is when you are Rebecca, you take on some more effeminate mannerisms. You cross your legs like a woman, and you kind of bounce your toe. Like a lot of times you're wearing.
Well, when I'm dressed as a woman, I wanna look like a woman. I wanna be like a woman. That's because when I walk down the street, obviously I want people to think that I'm a woman. That's what I do.
Okay, but you don't cross your legs in an effeminate manner when you're presenting as a man. You usually stand like with your legs apart, kind of man spreading, as the goofy term suggests. And
yeah, it's like two different people.
So
I was never an effeminate dude.
No. In fact, you're very sporty. You played sports. You're a big sports fan. Well, I'm a big sports fan too, and that's something that leans away from it as well. We'll continue in just a minute. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. This is Sterling on Sunday. Welcome. I'm James Parker in for Walter Sterling along with Rebecca Pratt. You are listening to Radio History because in our short research, I think this is the first nationally broadcasted radio show that is being hosted by a trans woman, and that's cool timing. We didn't do this on purpose, but it is Pride Month, so I think we get some extra rainbow stickers for that one. I want to bring up something.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, Parker, that I am on Facebook, Rebecca Pratt. I live in New Orleans. Be my friend over there if you want, and I look a lot better than I sound.
So you and I both share sort of the same belief here that the term LGBT might not be appropriate because the T's and the LG's and B's aren't enough of the same thing that they should be lumped in together. No,
like the T, what I am, transgender. I don't know if we're that much liked by the G's, the gay guys, because the gay guys sometimes get mad at the T's when they see that the T's are dating guys, and they might think that we're selling out, or the T's are doing something that they're not doing that enables them to get guys to go out with them. And so there might be a little bit of jealousy there. I don't know.
Yeah, this level of complexity makes my head hurt because from the straight world outside looking in, I don't see how y'all are in the same category because, there's some big differences. Number one, you can't really hide it. If you want to live your life as a woman, for the most part, most people walking down the street can look at you and know that you're a trans woman. For the L's and the G's and the B's, that's not a thing unless you want to be openly flamboyant, unless you want to be dude walking around with a feather boa on, or you want to be a woman that's presenting with a flat top and a chain wallet. You can't really tell by looking, and that's just one thing.
Yeah, but there's a lot of trans women, Parker, who are really attractive, and I don't know, most people I don't think would be able to know that.
Yeah,
they're trans women.
You're right, and those are the absolute lucky ones because they miss that part of the difficulty that a lot of the other ones face. Another thing that's different is there's no additional medical procedures that go into the process of being an L, a G, or a B. There's not the decision on whether or not you want to get implants or have the top surgery. There's not any decision on whether or not there needs to be hormone therapy. There's no prescriptions that you have to be on in order to maintain or pursue this preference. And the big one, of course, is bottom surgery. But there's no medical intervention or healthcare overlap at all with the LGs and the Bs versus the Ts.
And I don't know how the Bs are even in there because they're doing sex with everybody. I mean, I don't understand how the Bs are next to the LG T's and Q's and
yeah, and you don't hear a lot of complaining from the Bs, and rightfully so, because I think the Bs actually have it best, even when compared to straight people, because it's I mean, what a gift it is to be a B, and when you find someone you like, no matter what's going on, when you reach your hand into their pants, you're gonna like whatever you find, and I can't, as a straight dude, I can't say that. And so if you're a B, I don't want to say it's an asset, but there are advantages to it that you definitely as a T do not have.
No, and as a transgender woman or a transgender person, I couldn't imagine waking up one day saying, I want to be with a dude, and then going to sleep and then waking up the next day saying, I want to be with a woman, and then going to sleep and then, I mean, who knows how I'm going to feel tomorrow,
Well, as a straight guy,
I guess I think the Bs are they're the luckiest ones in the whole LGBTQ plus.
Right, and we're not even going to get into the plus because that's a whole nother hour that it would be a different show. But as a straight guy, the Bs, I am of a dual mind about this. I do have what I admit is a strong case of doublethink going on there. Bs do not make sense if you're a dude. But as a guy, I would not be upset if every woman was a B. That's kind of my greatest dream, That makes sense. Oh, I can see why they would not have a very strong gender preference because they're beautiful women, and I would like to see both. So, yeah, it's from the outside looking in, it's a whole different set of issues between the L's, the G's, the B's, and the T's. Do you foresee an LGBT split?
They keep adding letters. How are they going to split? I mean, they're running out of the alphabet. So I don't know how they're going to split. But I get why they're all together. It's because we can all be marginalized, and that's
what it's become.
That's why they're together.
Yeah. So
but as a transgender person, I agree with you. And like most guys, there's not one of us that doesn't love seeing two attractive women making out with each other. But none of us want to see two dudes make out with each other.
I mean, the G's do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know. The crowd liked that one. Jesus. Good response there. Yeah, so I think the G's are the only ones that aren't into that. But I'm not sure. I bet you some of them are too. Another weird issue that comes up in the split between the L's, the G's, the B's, and the T's is going forward when we have the adding of letters and the letters and the letters and the letters. What we have actually created is a group of, we'll just keep adding letters as long as you're not straight. So this is what LGBT has come. As long as you're not just a flat out normal old boring heterosexual, there's gonna be a letter for you in the letter string.
Yeah.
All right,
that's what it seems to be. And like I said, even though I'm a part of this community, I've seen and heard things said and done that I by people in this community that I don't really agree with. I agree with a lot of the stuff that the LGBTQ plus people say and do. But I brought up the swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania,
Leah Thomas.
That I didn't agree with that. I thought that looked like the T's, the transgenders, bullying cis girls and cis women. When you saw the size of Leah Thomas, the swimmer for the University of Pennsylvania, and that's pretty wild, Parker. If you think about it, that's probably the only time a transgender could be accused of being a bully. I mean, transgender women,
Sure.
we're men who dress like women and act like women, and now we're being called bullies. Wow, that's incredible. You talk about having your mind blown.
Yeah, that's a tough one, and that's not necessarily the best look. Now, from the category of just a guy that's a straight, married, father of four, me, couldn't be more boring. One thing I've noticed is that when I turn on the TV, whether I'm going through Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or regular old TV or whatever, there seems to be a trans character on about half the TV shows out there. I have a whole long list of TV shows that have inserted a trans character, whether it's Money Heist or Lizzo's Look Out for the Big Girls, or as a network show, I think it's on NBC, Good Girls, the Christina Hendricks show, has a trans character. I can list you about 9 shows right now that have a trans character, where 5 years ago there was 0. Maybe Orange is the New Black was the first one that started it. But for me, it's like, where is all this coming from? And I don't want to say it's annoying, but it's a little suspicious. As a T, do you have an issue with that, or have you noticed like far beyond your proportion representative in media?
Yeah, well, it's gotten so crazy that this radio show just added a T to co-host with you to fill in for Walter. Um,
Ah,
but you know what, James? I always thought through my research, I always thought that the majority of transgender were men who become women. But over this last 5 to 10 years, it's evened up, and there might even be more women who become men.
no
And
way. No way. Are you
that's
serious?
yeah, that's from what I've been reading, and I had no idea there were so many T's out there. Um, I mean, because when I was a kid, there was no internet, so I didn't know. I thought I was the only boy dressing up like a girl secretly. I didn't know what else was out there. But I guess because of the internet now, I know several women who have daughters who are living as boys now.
You know,
Several.
don't we have like statistics on this? This is something we've looked up before. I don't think to obviously do on the radio before, but isn't it like 80% to 20%, like 80% of the T community is men transitioning to women versus 20% women transitioning to men?
It used to be like that, but these days there are lots of girls who are becoming boys. That's from what I've read.
Interesting stuff. All right, I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. We're filling in for the great Walter Sterling, and you're listening. Ah, man, it is so nice. I'm so vain. I love hearing myself doing the floor stories. I am James Parker, filling in for Walter Sterling, along with one of my best friends on the planet, Rebecca Pratt, and radio history, whether you recognize it or not, I believe is being made tonight as Rebecca is, as we speak, being the first trans host of a nationally syndicated talk show. So congratulations. You are now a witness to history.
And history is cool.
Sometimes history is cool because, sometimes history is something god awful like a famine or a plague. But in this case, definitely cool. I'm proud to be a part of it. Coming up, though, you're going to see the dynamic side of Rebecca Pratt, who is not what you would think would fit into the stereotypical lanes of what you would expect out of a trans woman. Because let me tell you a big secret about both me and Rebecca that puts us on the outs with about 90% of America. This puts us on a leper colony more so than anything else. This is probably worse and more stigmatizing than Rebecca being a trans. That is, we are both, I don't know, we should come out and just go ahead and say this together. We are both Cowboys fans. Cowboys fans. No. Have you noticed?
Yeah, people ask me how I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan because I grew up in Connecticut.
In the shadow of New York City. You're in the New York City market when you were growing up, right? Fairfield, Connecticut. Y'all have the same TV stations.
An hour outside of New York City, and all of my friends were Giant fans. There were a few Jet fans. But how I ended up liking the Cowboys When I was a kid, the Giants would come on at 1 o'clock and they would stink and they would lose. And then all of a sudden at 4 o'clock, this team would come on from Texas with stars on their helmets, cheerleaders, and there was a hole in the roof so God could watch them play. And they won. And I'm thinking to myself, who wouldn't like that team? So that's how I became a Cowboy fan. And I'm not a Jerry Jones fan, though. I think he's hurt the organization so much. If he never fired Jimmy Johnson, the Cowboys would have won 10 Super Bowls.
Maybe, maybe a couple more could have been thrown in there, but it's hard to imagine they could have done worse if they would have kept him. Have you gotten more grief for your lifestyle as a trans woman or for your lifestyle choice as a Cowboys fan?
It's really close. I'd have to go and I'd have to sit down with some forensic experts and go over everything.
Right.
But it's really close.
Well, it's been a different experience for me because I was born this way. I'm biologically a Cowboys fan because I was born in East Texas, which is definitely Cowboy country. I mean, Dallas is like 90 miles to my left from where I'm sitting right now, and I'm in my hometown. So what I was taught growing up is, dude, not only are you a Cowboys fan, but Cowboys are America's team. And then you grow up and you go out into the real world and you leave the bubble that you're in, and you find out as soon as you drive a few hours in any direction, people go from loving the Cowboys, not to being neutral about the Cowboys, but to hating the Cowboys. I gotta tell you, I was a little shocked. I wasn't upset. I didn't take personal offense. I mean, I'm not a Cowboy. I'm not part of the Cowboys organization. But, you know what? We'll have to continue this coming up. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. And look, we'll talk a little sports, but it won't get too Xy and Ozies. This is Sterling on Sunday. I'm James Parker in for Sterling on Sunday along with Rebecca Pratt. And we're going to be joined this segment by Sean Sereno, WPHT is his home base. And for this, I wanted to bring in Sean in addition to Rebecca for the diversity factor. We're going to try and hit as many boxes as we can. You're a trans woman. I am the most evil person alive right now. I'm a straight, white, heterosexual, cisgendered Christian male. Like whatever scholarships are out there, none of them are for me. And then we're bringing in Sean, not that he's the spokesman, but I believe he is of African-American descent. Are my assumptions correct there, Sean? I don't want to.
Yes, you are.
Right.
You're correct with that.
Now, in addition to that level of diversity, there's the age diversity. Sean is in his mid-20s. I'm in my mid-40s. Rebecca is in her mid-50s. And so this is a great conversation to have with this crew right here, because the NBA finals are going on right now. And as not stereotypically expected for a trans woman, Rebecca is a big NBA fan. I'm an NBA fan. Sean's an NBA fan. And Rebecca had said something earlier today that has caused me to think more than most of the comments that come out of her mouth. And she is saying that in addition to everything that he's already accomplished, if it hadn't been solidified by now, the performance that Steph Curry is putting forward in this NBA Finals has him on track to be one of the top 5 NBA players of all time. Now, non-sports fans are like, oh, God, please don't talk about sports. We're not going to talk about X's and O's. We're not going to talk about, stats and numbers and what's on the back of their basketball card, as much as we're going to talk about the decision-making process by which these things are determined across positions, but more importantly, across generations. And some cool things are happening right now, because no matter how big of a fan you are of the current players, whether it's a LeBron or a Steph Curry or whatever, I think this is interesting because we all kind of agree still, even 30 years after the fact, that Michael Jordan is the best to have ever played. And so now it's just a race to fill in the last 4 spots on the top 5. And that's what really this is. It's not, is Steph Curry in the top 5? It's if Steph Curry isn't in the top 5, who are the 5 that are in there? So, Rebecca, make the case for Steph Curry being a top 5 all-time NBA player.
Well, he's the greatest shooter who ever lived. He is trying to win his 4th NBA title And by the way, that's a best out of three series now that continues tomorrow night. They've been playing basketball for 7 months, and now it comes down to 2 out of 3 games. But if most basketball fans agree that he's the greatest shooter who ever lived, he has to be in the top five. And I know most people will say Michael Jordan, they'll say Kobe Bryant, they'll say Magic Johnson, they'll say Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. But but I say if you're talking about the top five NBA players who ever played, shouldn't it be by position? You have a point guard, a shooting guard, two forwards, and a center. Shouldn't that be the best five? Or should the best five who ever played in the NBA, they like four of them could play the same position?
Sean, what do you think of that? Yes, no, you agree with that, disagree with that? Where do you stand on Steph Curry being in the top five?
Well, listen, I wanted to definitely say with Rebecca, you had some really interesting points with all of that, but I have to disagree with you with Steph Curry being the top five. And I love Steph. But when you said that he's the greatest shooter of all time, I completely agree with you with that. But that doesn't give you enough accolades to put you in that top five. Because before Steph Curry, it was Ray Allen. And we didn't even recognize Ray Allen as like a top 15 player of all time. And he was the greatest shooter of all time. And then also, when you look at Steph in all his championship runs, he had Kevin Durant, he had superstars. He also had the second best shooter of all time in my eyes, Klay Thompson, on his team. So it's kind of hard. I would definitely say that Steph is the second best point guard of all time if he can win the Finals MVP.
So you look at him more as a point guard than a shooting guard.
Yeah, I definitely could say that because he's the main guy that has the ball all the time. So I will give him the status as a point guard.
Wow.
All
Okay.
right. And I mean, there are other people too. Larry Bird. There are other players too. But when you want to talk about the top five of all time, that's kind of like talking about the top five rock bands of all time. It's going to be a bit subjective. Um, but you make sense.
Now, is it what's your reasons on why do you feel like Steph is the top five player of all time?
It's because he's the greatest shooter who ever lived. And I think if you're going to say the man is the greatest shooter who ever lived, you would think you would have to put him in the top five. I hear what you said about Ray Allen, but Ray Allen didn't win the championships that Steph Curry is winning. Um, and that has a lot to do with it too. When you talk about great players, they have to be on winning teams because there are a lot of guys that put up big numbers, but all they do is lose.
Julius
So you
Erving.
you you can't talk about those guys. But when you talk about the top five, whoever played, especially if you're going position, if you're gonna put out an NBA team, two guards, two forwards, and a center, boy, the backcourt of Steph Curry and Michael Jordan looks really good.
It does look very good, but I could definitely say that Steph Curry had way more superstars and if not future Hall of Famers on his team than compared to like Michael Jordan and his team because he only had Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. And then when you look at Steph, he has a crazy amount of acolytes. He had Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, like these guys are all stars. And then we can't forget about Andre Iguodala. He was really good at one moment too.
All right, where is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fitting into this? Because this is the regular season points leader.
Yeah, and he scored more points than anybody. I mean, you can have an argument. Who's your center on the best starting five of all time? Is it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Is it Bill Russell? Is it Wilt Chamberlain? I think it would have to be either Jabbar or Russell.
Okay.
See, mine's I guess I could say that I haven't watched, any of those guys that have played, and I completely respect them. But I would definitely say like my two top big men would be Shaq and it would be Tim Duncan.
Wow. See, this is what I'm talking about. When you talk to someone under 30, they of course there's going to be a recency bias. but he's not saying Akeem Olajuwon or anything like that.
But those two names are definitely in the discussion. I mean, Hakeem won a couple of titles, and he was dominant when he played.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear Sean. As how old are you, Sean? 25, 26? What were you?
I'm 26.
Yeah, 26. So what is your top five?
So my top five is LeBron, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, and Magic Johnson.
Wait, you put them? You don't have Michael Jordan at number one?
So it's very hard to really.
Oh, that wasn't
so when
in order.
it comes down to number one,
Okay.
like when it comes down to like Michael Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron, I put them all in their own little section because they all did three different things that impacted the NBA in so many different ways. So that's the only reason why I can't really say it's a definite number one, but I could definitely say that those three guys are tied for number one because they did a lot of different things in the league.
Hard to argue with that.
No, and it is. I mean, it's a great discussion to have because there are several names that legitimately could be in the top five in the NBA, but there's only 5 spots. Mount Rushmore only has 4 spots.
I hear you.
So that's what makes it so tough.
All right, I want you guys' reaction to Stephanie's comment that her top 5 is Michael Jordan, Shaq, Barkley, Bird, and Kobe.
I like Barkley too, but he just didn't win enough. And I think if you're talking, Stephanie, about top 5, the guys had to be winners. They had to win multiple NBA championships. They had to lead their team to winning multiple NBA championships. And Barkley just couldn't do that.
So how does Steph climb the ladder to get into that top 3, Sean?
So in order for Steph to get into that top 3 as the greatest of all time, he has to win multiple finals MVP because that's the only thing that's stopping Steph. Like,
and he doesn't have one?
No, he has none. He has none so far. And I feel like if Steph could get at least 2 or 3 more under his belt, and yes, his title ring is going to go up crazy high, but I feel like that's where it's going to give him that input of being one of the top 3 of all time. Now, don't get me wrong, he's the greatest shooter of all time, but he needs to have more of those acolytes to really put him above everybody else. Because you look at the other top 5, their acolytes is tremendous. There's so many different titles and awards from all the other 3 guys that's around.
All right. When I see the name Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that just reminds me, what the hell happened? What happened to the Skyhook? Is that coming back? Why does can you speak for the younger generation here, Sean? Why don't y'all do the Skyhook?
The Skyhook is just not the thing now. I say the Skyhook is the new 3-point shot because that's what everyone likes to do. And I feel like the Skyhook is just one of those like pioneer and very, very like I'll just definitely say like it's just one of those legendary moves that you can only perfect it. You can't really learn it. You have to perfect it.
And even back in the day when Kareem was doing the Skyhook, there weren't many other players who were doing the Skyhook.
It just seems an unstoppable shot like that Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway. Like, why doesn't everybody do that? And I predict the Skyhook will make it come. Some player is going to make his bones being the Skyhook guy. Is that a reasonable prediction?
Hopefully Joel Embiid.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean Serino from WPHT, along with Rebecca Pratt. I'm James Parker. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday. Welcome. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. We are proudly filling in for Walter Sterling and Sterling on Sundays. You are witnessing radio history as it's happening. Not that it really affects the show. I mean, this is radio, so you can't even tell. But in our crude research here, it looks like Rebecca Pratt may be the first trans host of a nationally broadcasted radio show, and I think that would be radio history. So you are now a party to history. For our next story,
I said earlier, history is cool. I mean, obviously, not all history is cool. Like Hitler wasn't cool, but history is history.
That's a strong stance you're taking there. Hitler is not cool. Are you going to stand by that? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's a controversial statement. I'm going to stand by that one.
Yeah, the Pacific Ocean's a little damp. For our next story, I want to go to Chicago because this is something me and Rebecca were laughing about before the show. A woman in Chicago and her husband had bought this house, and it was kind of a fixer-upper. And so they fixed it up. They were there for a few years, and when they moved out, they emptied out the house, and this gave them the chance to do the finishing touches on all the remodeling that they had been able to do while they were there. And so for a little chunk of time there, this was just an abandoned house. And abandoned in the fact that no one was living there, and there wasn't furniture in there. There wasn't pictures on the wall. And so when they go to put the finishing touches on the remodeling, it turns out one day they show up and their key doesn't work. And someone had changed the lock. Someone had changed all 6 locks to the outside doors on the house. So they peek in the window, and someone's living in there. So they call the cops.
Or squatting. Squatting is the term.
Technically, Rebecca, we just don't know now, do we? Because when the cops show up, they knock on the door, and the young lady answers the door. Hey, so what are you doing here? She says, I live here. Okay, do you own the house? No, I'm renting. Can you prove that you rent this house? Because there's this couple that called us that says they own the house and you do not have permission from them to live here. This is where it gets tough. The young lady is able to actually produce a signed lease agreement between her and a landlord. So since the cops cannot prove, and they don't have, they actually have paperwork disputing the initial claim from who we think is probably the homeowners. But again, this hasn't gone through court and whatnot. I could be wrong. This is just what we think so far. It now becomes not a criminal matter, but a civil matter. So now what has to happen is the couple that we think owns the house is now having to sue. Here's the problem, though. This has to go through the courts. This could take, it could be as quick as 6 months, maybe 12 months, maybe 18 months. And so because of this confusion here, this lady, even if it's not her house, she's probably going to get to live there for 6 months, a year, maybe 18 months for free.
Absolutely free.
Right. So we'll continue this dilemma coming up. I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday. I'm James Parker, in for Walter Sterling, along with Rebecca Pratt. We were going over the story of a squatter in Chicago who came up with what may be a forged lease. I mean, we don't really know because this hasn't gone through the court, so all allegedly, reportedly, supposedly, to keep the lawyers at bay. But, Rebecca, can you see the legal dilemma here that is posed by the cops when they are told that there's a squatter in a vacant house and the squatter supposedly is able to show a lease?
Yeah, I could see the dilemma. That happened here in New Orleans as well. You would think that the cops would be able to just kick the door down and grab the squatter out by the throat and drag the squatter out.
Well, what if the person is lying? Because if that's the case, then I can go say you're a squatter and have the cops kick down your door and drag you out.
Well, because of what this person did, I said to you earlier, Parker, you could take your wife and kids to the lake for the day. I could move into your house, change the locks, and it could take you 6 months to get back into your house.
Right, and that's the concern here because the key piece of evidence that the maybe squatter had is that she was able to produce a lease, and anyone can go type out a lease or copy a lease and do a little Photoshop on it or whatnot and come up with something to show the cops just to get them out the door. But I think what makes this different is that since they had already moved out of the house and had the empty house, they had no way to prove that they had lived there. Because if I just went to the lake for the day, that means they would have to take all my furniture out of my house, any personal belongings out of my house, anything with my picture on the wall out of the house, everything in the attic out of the house, because there's stuff I can go up there and prove that this belongs to me. Look, this is my yearbook from my high school, and I can prove that I went to that high school, and this person that's squatting can't prove that they went to that high school or whatever. There would be evidence in the house that it was yours. So it's not so simple as like I can just go around the corner to get a pack of smokes and someone can come change the locks. It has to be a little more complicated than that. But there's part of me that is sort of partial to the cops' reaction of, hey, we can't decide this based on the evidence that we have just on this call. So this is going to have to go to the civil courts.
Yeah, if the cops can't prove anything on the spot, then it has to go to a judge.
So I think in the end, the homeowners are going to be made whole because they will be able to prove the process by which they bought the house. And there's not going to be like a title transfer that's on record. But that still, you have to go dig out that evidence. You have to wait for your court date. You have to present it to the court. And, because of, a probable backlog, I doubt Chicago is the fastest, most efficient court system America has to offer. That's probably not a crazy assumption to make. It does totally seem unfair that if what we believe is correct, that some young lady is going to be able to live in this house rent-free for a year.
Yeah, that's something. It's amazing. Squatters' rights. When that happened here in New Orleans.
What is this story you talk about in New Orleans? I don't know this story.
The same thing happened. There was a squatter in a house, and it took months to get them out. When the cops showed up, the cops didn't take the squatter out of the house because the cops didn't believe the couple who were being squatted upon. They didn't believe that the couple lived there because it was a rough neighborhood.
So they were the squattees.
The house was in one of the neighborhoods where people get shot every day here in the city of New Orleans. And so the cops were like, I don't believe you two would live in this neighborhood because it's so scary. So I believe the squatter inside.
The squatter versus the squattee. Wouldn't that be what the property owner is called? The squattee versus the squatter. So I am almost part of me thinks, look, I can't do this now. But when I was in my 20s and I didn't have a wife and 4 kids and I was a little more transient, for lack of a better word, this sounds like a con that could have been useful to me in my 20s. Like, why couldn't I have done this? I'd come up with a contract, just go find an empty house and live in it, go to a nice neighborhood and have a nice little setup. Sure, I'll only get to keep it for 6 months or a year or whatever, but that's as good as gold for 20-something James.
Yeah, you should have thought about it because 20-something James was living in his car for a little while not long after Hurricane Katrina here in New Orleans. You could have squatted for 6 months to a year, no problem.
Well, I would have, but all the houses were dilapidated. There was no squatting availability in New Orleans right after Katrina. But yeah, thanks for telling.
The people that were squatting in New Orleans were the people that actually owned the homes. They were squatting in tents in their driveways.
In trailers, yeah. They had the FEMA trailers when I first came across New Orleans. Yeah, so thanks for telling everyone my dirty secret that I was homeless for a while in my 20s. Hey, everybody. Rebecca's a trans. I bet you didn't know that. So while we're spilling everyone's secrets over here. So I think this will go to the courts and probably come out the correct way. But part of me, I have to admit, is impressed by young people who can pull off these cons that if I'd have thought about it at the time, I probably still wouldn't have had the gonads to go even attempt something like this. So part of me is impressed by the sort of catch me if you can nature of the squatter.
Yeah, that would be like going into a gas station and being able to fill up your car with the high price of gasoline for free and just drive out of there. Or go into a grocery store with the inflation the way it is, with the prices rising, and fill up a shopping cart and just get out of there with a full shopping cart for free.
All right, now most of us...
I know in some cities that happens a lot, like San Francisco and Los Angeles. I watch the news, and that's because the DAs there, they let people get away with stealing stuff as long as it's under a certain amount.
Oh, yeah,
you can walk into any store in San Francisco or Los Angeles and steal stuff. You just can't steal too much. And then you can walk right out.
Right. And if I was in San Francisco and I saw that, I would feel like a chump the next time I went to Walgreens and actually put up my debit card for the stuff I'm walking out with. Like, what a loser am I? But you mentioned inflation. You were telling me a little economic tidbit. I've been kind of checked out all weekend, so I've been keeping up with the news for a couple days. I was traveling this week. You said it is expected that tomorrow, for the first time in American history, the national average for gas is going to be above $5 a gallon.
Yeah, either tomorrow or Tuesday, it's going to be $5 a gallon. And not only that, and that's the national average for a gallon of gas. Not only that, there is no end in sight. There's not one human being on earth that can tell you when the gas prices are going to stop rising. They're going to keep going up and up and up. It's incredible what they're paying in California. I mean, it's incredible what they pay for a gallon of gas out there. And you would think that is really, really hurting the average family here in the United States of America. You would just think.
Well,
But there's not one person who could tell you when the price of gas will stop rising.
I know this doesn't really help the people that are getting ate up with high gas prices, but I must admit in my household it's less of an issue now because I work almost exclusively from home now, and I have since basically 2015. And now my wife has a job that she has a real job. She doesn't get to play around and goof off on the radio all day like she works for a corporation and has a college degree and professional skills, and good for her. But she had a job that was previously something she had to go to the office for every day. Because of coronavirus, it went remote, and even though the fog of coronavirus is lifting, she is still only required to go into the office twice a week. So me and her primarily work from home. And how lucky are we that we are getting to dodge the bullet of these high gas prices, because our commutes have both almost gone away. But there's a lot of Americans who are having to absolutely eat this. Now, here's the weird part. I was doing some research here because, when the price of gas gets high enough, it's going to change people's behaviors. And I was trying to find out who are the people buying mid-grade unleaded. I know why people buy regular unleaded. It's the cheapest option there. And if your car doesn't require anything better, well, then you're just wasting your money to go get mid-grade or super. There's a handful of cars that recommend super. There's an even smaller fraction of cars that require super unleaded, but no one is required to buy mid-grade. Who are these people that are buying the middle nozzle at the gas pump?
Suckers.
Right. So I actually did a little more research so we would have a better answer than suckers. But when I got to the breakdown here, this is according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. I actually have an answer for that. 88% of the gas sold in the United States is just regular old pedestrian unleaded. 11% is the premium unleaded. The rest is mid-grade. So it's about 1%. 1% of the gas sold in America is the mid-grade. So are you probably coming to the natural conclusion that me and the dude listening to are coming to? Why do they even have a mid-grade of gasoline? Do you have any theories on that one?
Well, there used to be a time where they could make a few extra bucks, and that's why they would have that. But I thought there was, Parker, I thought there was only unleaded and super unleaded, and the super unleaded costs more, but most cars, all they need is the regular unleaded.
Right, really, less than 3% of cars need the super unleaded. No car requires mid-grade. There's no one asking for mid-grade. There's no manual that's recommending or demanding mid-grade. Here is the best theory I have found on why mid-grade gasoline even exists. So in times past, there was leaded gasoline, and then it switched to unleaded gasoline, and then they added there was leaded gasoline, unleaded gasoline, and then premium unleaded. However, when leaded gasoline went away, all the pumps in America had 3 slots. So they invented the mid-grade to fill that third slot. And for no reason in particular, that middle nozzle has not gone away.
Yeah, to make a few extra bucks.
That's the best I can figure out. Isn't that like the least pleasing answer to why? And this is going to puzzle you. This is going to drive you nuts every time you go to the gas station after this. Why the hell does that middle option even exist? There's no good answer for that. That was my conclusion. Rebecca, anything?
They just wanted to make a few extra bucks. That's why they haven't changed it in a long time.
I'm James Parker with Rebecca Pratt. You're listening to Sterling on Sunday.
It's Sterling on Sunday. I'm Rebecca Pratt, filling in for Walter with James Parker. And you just heard James with his Florida stories. He's been co-hosting this show with me, filling in for Walter. And I want to thank Walter for letting me do this, letting us do this, letting me make a little history. I'm trying to think of the last time in my life that I made history. And I don't know. I've been scratching my head. I haven't been able to come up with a time. But the history was I'm a transgender woman, and the first time a transgender woman has hosted or co-hosted a national radio broadcast. So thank you, Walter.
Well, Walter's always been a forward-looking guy. The first time Walter came across my radar, I don't think I've told you this story, Rebecca. It was before I met you. I had met Walter. When I worked at the satellite radio company, Sirius, he was my boss's boss. This was a guy who started out as a talk radio host, and in his 20s, he had made the move to management and was like the PD of WABC or something crazy awesome like that when he was in his late 20s. He went through a few decades in the management role as being the top of the top, made a bunch of money, got out, and then did what he wanted to do now and be a talk show host. And it's really cool to not only be a part of this broadcast, but for him to instantly recognize the historic nature of what we just did tonight is a tribute to him. And we thank Walter Sterling for sharing his show with us. I'm James Parker with the Rebecca Pratt. This has been Sterling on Sunday.